Dr. Elena Myers stepped onto the illuminated stage, her heart beating like a drum. The vast auditorium fell silent as the crowd leaned forward, thousands of eyes fixed on the sleek device. At the central machine she had spent 10 years perfecting, its purpose was simple to state, but impossible in practice, to measure the true strength of every living species. Tonight, she would show the world what her biogauge could do. The biogauge stood tall on a polished platform, its glass panels glowing with soft blue light. Wires and conduits ran like veins beneath the surface, connecting powerful sensors. To a central processor, a giant screen hovered behind it, ready to display results in real time. Elena ran her fingers over the smooth casing one last time, then faced the audience with a smile. "Welcome," she said, her voice steady. "Tonight, you will see what no one has ever seen before." Her assistant, Malik, flipped a switch. The machine hummed to life, and beams of light danced across the stage. Elena pressed a button on her remote. "Test 1, she announced. A small container rolled forward on hidden tracks. Inside it rested a common house cat. The audience watched the screen as numbers and bars climbed. The reading stopped at 120 units. Polite applause filled the room. Next came a German shepherd. The screen updated, 250 units. Gasps rose from the crowd, then a silverback gorilla, 680 units. Cheers swelled. Elena nodded, acknowledging the reaction. She felt a rush of pride. Years of late nights and failed prototypes had led to this moment. The machine worked flawlessly. But this was only the start. Elena held up a finger and spoke calmly. Now, something larger. She pressed another button. A life-size hologram of a dragon materialized on the platform. Though purely an image, the biogauge could simulate strength from genetic archives. The audience watched in awe as the gauge soared past 1,000 units, the bars flashing red. A roar echoed through speakers, and the crowd erupted into stunned applause. Finally, Elena guided the test toward humanity itself. A volunteer stepped forward, a healthy man in a lab coat. The biogauge's sensors traced his muscles and recorded data. For a moment, the auditorium held its breath. The numbers climbed slowly, then stopped at 95 units. A murmur spread like wildfire. Humans measured weaker than cats, dogs, even some grand apes. Whispers turned to shocked silence. Elena's smile faltered. She pressed her lips together and signaled Malik to double-check the data. On the screen, the bars blinked. Then, without warning, the display warped. Numbers flickered, symbols shifted, and an odd label appeared. Unknown. The crowd stiffened. A loud beep sounded. Elena's pulse quickened. She raised her voice to be heard above the alarm. "Please remain calm. This is unexpected." Red lights flashed around the room. Alarms blared in rapid succession. The biogauge's hum deepened into a mechanical growl. Elena rushed toward the console, Malik at her side, both peering at the erratic readings. The machine's panels glowed brighter, as if reacting to the chaos. Wires sparked at the base. A wave of heat swept across the stage. The audience gasped and jumped to their feet. Security guards moved to clear a path. But Elena held up a hand. "No one leave," she called out. Her voice rang with authority. She barely felt. "We must see this through." She typed commands at the console, attempting to halt the test or at least pause the machine. But every key she pressed seemed to make things worse. The screen pulsed, and then, in the middle of the chaos, the display went dark. Silence fell. The alarms stopped as abruptly as they began. The only sound was the soft crackling of cooling metal. The audience remained frozen, eyes wide. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the giant screen flickered back to life. In plain white letters against a black background appeared one word. "Unknown." Elena swallowed hard. She stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems we have found something beyond our understanding." A hush followed her words. In that instant, every person in the room felt the weight of those letters. Unknown was not a result. It was a warning, and it promised that the true strength of life still lay hidden in shadows. No machine could fully reveal the data that doesn't fit. Early morning light seeped through the tall windows of Lab Ring 7, casting long shadows over rows of humming biogauge. CONSOLEs. Dr. Elena Myers sat alone at her workstation, scrolling through the dozens of test logs from the grand demonstration. Each entry was neatly stamped with species name, test time, and strength units. Dragons, leviathans, gorillas all fit the machine's predictions. But one sequence refused to align. Time after time, human readings stalled at 95 units. then suddenly spiked to inexplicable values before crashing back down. Elena frowned. She tapped her pen on the desk, heart thudding. Something in those numbers did not fit any pattern she knew. She printed out the suspect logs and spread them like a fan across the desk. Each page held a mix of red flags, double entries, blank fields, and an odd symbol beside the spikes. A small asterisk labeled U. Elena leaned closer. The asterisk appeared only in tests run 15 seconds after the initial human reading. It was as if the biogods detected a hidden layer of strength that surfaced briefly, then vanished. She whispered to herself, "What are you hiding?" The question echoed in the empty lab. No one passed by to answer. Just then, her assistant Malik arrived, coffee in hand. He paused at the doorway, noticing Elena's tense posture. "You're up early," he said softly. Elena motioned him over. Together, they examined the logs under bright fluorescent lights. Malik traced his finger down the pages. "Look here," he said, stopping at 5 entries. "Each spike follows a neural calibration sequence. Did you tweak the algorithm before?" "The demo?" Elena shook her head. She had tested the calibration weeks ago and locked the code. Yet every human reading flashed that hidden burst of power. "It's like we're missing a variable," she said, "something the biogods can't fully capture." Malik frowned. "Maybe it's just noise," he suggested. "Sensors get jittery when overloaded." Elena straightened. "Noise doesn't create identical patterns across separate trials. And it didn't happen with any other species." She tapped the logs again. "This is real, and it points to a force we have never measured." She looked up at him, eyes bright with urgency. "We need to understand what you means before we go further." That afternoon, Elena and Malik presented their findings to the lab's director, Dr. Marcus Carter. He sat in his high-backed chair, arms crossed. His expression was polite, but impatient. Elena explained the repeated U entries and the strange 15-second delay. Malik demonstrated on the central console how every human test triggered the anomaly. Carter leaned forward, brows knitting. "Dr. Myers, the grand demonstration was a success. Minor data glitches happen. We do not need to undermine public confidence with speculation." He tapped his fingers on the table, focused on refining the biogods for commercial use. "Leave the anomalies for later." Elena felt her jaw tighten. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She could not argue without sounding paranoid. Instead, she nodded. "Of course," she said, voice steady, but inside, her resolve hardened. If Carter would not investigate, she would have to do it herself. That evening, Elena returned home, but sleep eluded her. She lay in bed, eyes on the ceiling, mind racing through data points. In her dreams, the biogods loomed large, its glass panels bending like water each time it ran a human test. The screen flashed unknown in brilliant white letters that burned into her mind. She woke at dawn, sweat on her brow, breath shallow. Even in dreams, the anomaly would not let her rest by midweek. Elena set up a secret calibration chamber in the disused storage wing of the lab. She rigged a smaller biogods prototype with extra sensors and a direct data link to her personal terminal. Malik agreed to help, though he warned her of professional risks. Together, they ran tests on human volunteers, athletes, office workers, even a yoga instructor. Every test produced the same strange pattern, a steady reading around 95 units, a sudden jump above 300 for exactly 3 seconds, then a rapid decline. No other species showed a momentary surge like that. Elena's heart pounded each time. She recorded video of the waveform on her terminal. The spike formed a perfect arc, like a heartbeat amplified by 10. She labeled the phenomenon the pulse effect. What could trigger such a burst of strength in humans alone? She searched her mind for clues: adrenaline, belief, mitochondrion unfit. The pulse effect seemed to exist on its own terms. She decided to confront Dr. Carter one more time. She gathered her notes, printed graphs in hand, and walked into his office unannounced. Carter looked up from his computer. "Dr. Myers," he said, surprised but polite. "What can I do for you?" Elena spread her graphs on his desk. "I believe human strength holds a hidden variable," she said. "Something the biogods picks up, but we do not yet understand. I need full access to the main unit to study it further." Carter studied the papers, then sighed. "You're chasing ghosts," he replied. "We have investors breathing down our necks. I cannot allocate more resources to a phantom problem." Elena's shoulders slumped, but she did not give up. "Please," she pleaded softly, "if we ignore this, We may unleash something we cannot control. Carter waved a hand. You have 24 hours to finalize the prototype calibration. After that, drop it. Understood. Elena nodded, voice tight. She turned and left, determination blazing in her eyes as she walked back to her lab. Elena made a silent promise. She would find the truth behind the pulse effect, no matter the cost. She would trace that hidden variable to its source even if she had to break every rule she ever followed. The future of her research, and perhaps all life, hung on what she discovered next. A journey to the fringe. Dr. Elena Myers and Malik packed only the essentials: data drives, portable sensors, and ration packs. They secured the pulse effect logs in a hardened case. Elena knew that to understand the hidden strength, they needed someone who had studied energy anomalies far from the controlled labs. Her mind kept returning to one named Dr. Soren Vela, brilliant but reclusive physicist who vanished years ago to the galactic frontier. Elena's heart raced at the thought of finding him. They boarded a small scout vessel at dawn. The ship's engine shook as it lifted off the landing pad. Elena watched the lab shrink beneath them, then the city, and finally the planet's clouds. Outside the viewport, stars glimmered against void. Malik punched in coordinates for Vale's outpost. The journey would take 2 days at sublight speed. Elena used the time to review every line of code in her hidden chamber. If Vale could help, they might solve the pulse effect before corporate forces moved in. On the 3rd day, the vessel dropped out of transit above a dusty, rust-colored world. Wind screamed across wide plains. Thin canyons cut into the rock like scars. Elena felt a tingle of excitement mixed with fear. This was the fringe where laws weakened and secrets thrived. Malik guided the ship toward a weathered beacon, half buried in red sand. The outpost lights flickered, solar panels lay broken, paint peeled from metal walls. Yet a dim energy signature still pulsed inside. They stepped onto the landing platform. A hot wind tugged at their uniforms. Elena tightened her collar. They entered the outpost's main hall, where dust drifted in stray beams of light. Cracked screens and silent consoles filled the room. At the far end, a single door bore the faded name, Vale Research. Elena pressed her palm to a scanner. After a pause, the door hissed open. Inside, they found Dr. Soren Vale hunched over a cluttered desk, while gray hair framed a lined face. He glanced up, eyes sharp beneath heavy brows. I wondered when you'd come, he said without surprise. His voice was calm, but held a note of warning. I saw your demonstration feed months ago. I thought it impossible until I saw the word unknown. Elena felt relief as she laid out her logs. Vale's eyes lit with recognition. Vale led them to a side room filled with vintage instruments. He flipped switches and recalibrated sensors. Gauges sprung to life, showing waves of energy he called subquantum fluctuations. These occur only in living tissue, he explained, voice low. They hide beneath standard measures. He pointed to a rolling graph. Every human subject he tested before he abandoned public work showed the same brief surge. Elena recorded. I saw it years ago, he said, but I could not name it. They spent hours comparing data. Elena projected her graphs onto a holoscreen. Vale traced the pulse effects arc with a long finger. It aligns with my readings, he said, but not on animals, only humans. He tapped his desk. I think it ties to conscious intent. Belief can shape energy at quantum levels. Elena frowned. She had never included intent in her model. Could thoughts really alter raw strength? The idea intrigued her, but felt impossible. As night fell, Vale suggested they venture into the nearby canyons. Strange energy readings had spiked there in his early surveys. He donned a field suit, and Elena and Malik followed. Outside, the wind had died. Shadows stretched under the moons. Their boots crunched on red gravel. Vale's portable scanner beeped suddenly. Here, he said, voice tense. Something moves beneath the rock. They crept toward a narrow gorge. The scanner's signal rose in pitch. Elena's pulse quickened. Then they saw a giant footprints pressed into the stone, 3 times larger than a human's. The marks pulsed with faint blue light, like the crystal in her dreams. Malik raised his blaster, but lowered it at Vale's gesture. This is not a beast, Vale whispered. It is something older. A low hum filled the canyon. Elena felt it in her bones, a living rhythm matching the pulse effects arc. The hidden variable was here, woven into the planet itself. Vale placed a hand on the wall and closed his eyes. We are not just measuring strength, he murmured. We are touching a force that shapes life. Elena stared at the glowing footprints, knowing they had crossed the point of no return. The next step, would reveal the true nature of human power and test their courage in ways they could not yet imagine. The hidden variable revealed under the twin moon's pale glow. The canyon walls trembled with an ancient power. Dr. Ellen Amaya steadied her breathing, her eyes fixed on the glowing footprints that pulsed like a heartbeat. Malik crouched beside her, scanning the ground for more signs. Dr. Soren Vale placed a hand on the stone wall, his weathered fingers tracing the faint blue veins that snaked through the rock. "This," he said softly, "is the source of the pulse effect." Elena knelt and pressed her palm against the warm stone. A gentle hum vibrated through her arm, rising to her chest and settling in her core. Her heart pounded not with fear, but with awe. Here, under layers of dust and time, lay a crystalline network older than any written record. Tiny prisms refracted the moonlight into shifting patterns of light. Among them, a central crystal pulsed brighter than the rest, as if alive. Vale produced a small scanner from his pack. He held it close to the main crystal. The device beeped rapidly, its readout spiking higher than anything he had measured before. "Subquantum resonance," he murmured. "It amplifies living intent. It doesn't just reflect strength, it magnifies it." Elena watched the readings climb. The values mirrored the 3-second spike she had seen in her lab tests. "So," she whispered, "this crystal, it creates the pulse effect in humans." Malik's voice trembled as he examined the scanner. "But why humans only? Why not other species?" Vale shook his head. "This force responds to self-awareness and choice. Humans possess a unique blend of conscious will and belief. When they know they face challenge, a spark flashes. Here, that spark grows into a wave." He tapped the crystal's base. "It's a living amplifier. It feeds on purpose." Elena's mind raced. If the crystal could magnify will, its power could reshape history or destroy it. She pictured the Biagaj machine, its readings warped by this hidden force. Suddenly, the lab demonstration made sense. Human volunteers had believed they held an equal chance of greatness. That belief triggered the pulse effect. In dragons and leviathans, strength was assumed, not will. They felt no need to push beyond their nature. "How do we study it safely?" Elena asked. "If we bring this back, the corporation will weaponize it." Vale's face darkened. "We do not bring it back. We learn its secrets here, then leave it to slumber." He gestured up the canyon. "Ancient guardians once protected this shrine. They vanished when civilization spread, but the crystal remained hidden, waiting for someone to recognize its true nature." The ground shook suddenly, and a low rumble echoed through the gorge. Dust fell from overhead ledges. Elena snapped to her feet, heart thundering. Vale steadied her shoulder. "The resonance is stirring," he said. "It senses our attention." The crystal's glow intensified, sending streaks of light racing along the veins in the rock. A high-pitched tone rang out, unlike any crystal song they had heard before. It was a call. Vale held up a hand. "Quiet." He closed his eyes and bowed his head, placing both hands on the glowing crystal. Elena watched, breath held. Minutes passed as he meditated before the living jewel. Then he opened his eyes, calm and clear. "It speaks in resonance patterns," he explained. "Inside us, it hears questions. Our minds shape its voice." He turned to Elena. "Ask it what you wish to know." Elena swallowed hard. She stepped forward and placed a hand on the crystal's smooth surface. Images flashed in her mind. Her mother's proud smile, the first day she saw the Biagaj work, the wave of excitement in the auditorium. Then came a clear thought. What is the true nature of strength? The crystal pulsed violently, and the ground convulsed beneath her feet. Light spilled into the canyon, blinding her for a heartbeat. When she could see again, a vision shimmered in the air above the crystal. It showed beings of light, forging bonds across worlds. Their strength was not in muscle or might, but in unity and compassion. She saw wars ended by forgiveness, barriers broken by understanding. Finally, the vision dissolved, leaving Elena trembling. Strength, she whispered, is choice. Malik exhaled. It revealed itself. He said, choice shaped by empathy, while tempered by wisdom. Elena nodded, tears in her eyes. She felt the weight of the revelation settle in her bones. We measure only the shell of power, she said, but the soul of strength lives in decisions we make. Vale stepped back, placing a protective barrier around the crystal with hand-drawn sigils. Now we know the hidden variable, he said, but knowledge alone is not enough. We must guard this place. If we remove the crystal, its power will fade, and if we expose it to those who seek only force, they will misuse it. Elena pressed a gentle pad on her wrist console. "I have recorded everything," she said. "The subquantum readings, the resonance patterns, the vision." She looked at Vale. "I will publish our findings, but framed correctly. Humanity must learn that true strength comes from choice, not conquest." He nodded, approval in his eyes. As dawn approached, the three stood together before the pulsing crystal, the hidden variable choice amplified by intent rested safely in its ancient home. Elena felt a surge of hope. She had discovered not just a source of power, but a lesson for all life, that real strength is born in the heart, guided by compassion, and measured in deeds, not numbers. And with that knowledge, a new chapter for humanity and the galaxy would soon begin. Race against corporate armster. Elena Myers knew they could not linger in the canyon forever. At dawn, she and Vale packed their data drives, portable scanners, and backup power cells into a reinforced satchel. Malik secured the pulse effect logs in a waterproof case. They agreed to return to Elena's city lab on Lyria Prime, where they could analyze the resonance patterns in safety and make the world understand what they had found. But the corporation behind the Biogage project had other plans. Word of Elena's revelation spread faster than she expected. By midday, corporate security chiefs had dispatched a Black Ops team of armed agents to the fringe world. Their orders were clear: seize the data, capture or eliminate the scientists, and secure the crystal source at any cost. Elena first sensed trouble when her handheld comm unit crackled with static. Incoming messages were jammed. Even her private channel to the lab went silent. Vale frowned. "They're cutting our links," he said. At the canyon mouth, faint engine roars echoed over the red sands. In the distance, dark silhouettes of hover jeeps appeared. Elena's heart hammered. "They found us," she whispered, with no time to lose. They moved swiftly toward their hidden hover crate. Malik worked to detach the crystal scanner from its mount, while Elena dumped logs into an encrypted drive. Vale covered his back, scanning for threats. The rumble of engines grew louder. Dust clouds churned around the canyon entrance, and the first agent's laser rifle beam sizzled against the rock wall. A burst of gunfire shattered silence. Vale fired a sonic disruptor he had built for emergencies. A concussive blast sent the closest soldier sprawling. Elena ducked behind a boulder, yanked her pistol free, and returned fire not to kill, but to keep them back. Malik sprinted to the hover crate, threw the drives inside, and sealed the lid. "Go," he shouted. They sprinted uphill to the extraction point Vale had scouted. Elena handed him a small beacon. He activated it. A sleek, unmarked dropship buzzed in from above, lowering its cargo hook. Agents poured into the canyon, their rifles flashing in the sun. Elena vaulted onto her hover bike, its engines humming to life. Malik leaped onto the back, clutching the satchel. Vale ran behind them, beacon in hand. As they roared along the narrow ridge, agents gave chase on hover bikes of their own. Laser fire cracked the air around them. Elena wove between rock spires, heart in her throat. Praying the dropship held position, the cliff's edge loomed ahead. She gunned the throttle, launching off a natural ramp. For a heartbeat, they flew then. Hook cables snagged the satchel and drives, lifting them toward the hovering ship. Elena landed hard, but safe, and watched as Vale and Malik drifted up. With a final blast of downward thrusters, the dropship rose, kicking up dust that swallowed the canyon. The agents skidded to a halt on the ridge, guns raised hopelessly. Below, the entrance to the hidden shrine lay silent once more. Vale placed a charge at the cave mouth, then shouted through the calm, "Seal it forever." A muted explosion echoed, and rock tumbled down, burying the crystal in its veins of power. Elena exhaled, relief and sorrow mingling. They had escaped with the knowledge, but left the source behind. As the dropship sped toward Lyria Prime, Elena stared at the encrypted drives in her lap. She understood that sharing this truth would spark a battle, far greater than any they had just faced. But she also knew that hidden within human choice lay a power no weapon could ever measure. Confronting the true power when the dropship touched down at Lab Ring 7. Elena's hands trembled as she carried the encrypted drives inside. The sterile corridors felt colder than ever. Malik and Vale followed close behind, eyes alert for any sign of pursuit. They had escaped the fringe world's corporate strike force. But they knew this was only the beginning. The true test lay in proving the pulse effect's lessons to those who saw only profit and control. Inside the lab's high-security vault room, Elena plugged the drives into an isolated terminal. Data streamed across the holoscreen. Resonance, Graphs, crystal scans, and the vision of strength shaped by choice, Vale stood beside her, tracing the glowing waveform with a trembling finger. "This is the future," he whispered. Yet before they could share it, warning lights flashed red. The vault door sealed shut as external alarms blared. Corporate security drones had arrived and breached the facility's perimeter. Alarms echoed through the halls. Malik dashed to a nearby panel and activated the lab's safety lockdown. Steel shutters dropped over windows. Force fields hummed into place, but the drones pierced the outer defenses and stormed in, their weapons trained on the scientists. Elena stepped forward, holding up her hand. "Wait," she called out. Her voice carried a calm authority that cut through the chaos. She tapped her wrist console. The holoscreen glowed with the crystal subquantum pattern. "You measured strength with machines." She addressed the drones and their corporate handlers, "but you ignored the living force inside every choice. You seek to weaponize power. Here is the truth you cannot kill." She pressed a sequence on the console. Instantly, the resonance patterns played through the lab's speakers as deep, vibrating tones. The crystal's echo filled the air like a living heartbeat. The intruders staggered as the sound washed over them. Their weapons clattered to the floor as if gravity had reversed. A visible wave of energy rippled across the room. Vale and Malik joined Elena, placing their hands on the console's edge. Together, they focused on one idea: that real strength comes from compassion, not conquest. The resonance shifted, softening into a gentle hum. The drone's optics dimmed. Their programming faltered. They lowered their arms and stood motionless. Elena's eyes glowed with conviction. "You have power," she said to the corporate agents, "but you lack purpose. True strength is the choice to protect life, not destroy it." She stepped forward and gently deactivated the drones. Their metal bodies slumped harmlessly. Guards and executives watched in stunned silence. Malik retrieved the pulse effect satchel and opened it. Inside lay the encoded vision, images of unity between species, of battles ended by forgiveness. He played the sequence on the main holoscreen. The corporate board members exchanged uneasy looks as they saw kingdoms and cultures rebuilt through empathy. A hush fell. Even the drone's eyes seemed to follow the images. Dr. Carter's voice came over the calm, shaking with disbelief. "Elena, what have you done?" She met his gaze through the viewport. "I showed them the real power," she replied softly. "This is our chance to change the world." Behind her, Vale nodded. Malik grinned, relief and hope shining in his eyes. As the lab's warnings faded and the sound of the crystal's resonance lingered, Elena knew the corporate hands that once clutched for control now hesitated. In that moment, the hidden variable had met its ultimate test and had proven that choice, tempered by compassion, could defeat any weapon. The real power of humanity stood revealed, and nothing would ever measure strength the same way again. A new era of understanding. Day after the lab confrontation dawned bright and clear. News feeds across every star system carried Dr. Elena Meyer's announcement. Strength could not be measured by raw numbers alone. Instead, true power lay in the choices beings made. In their acts of compassion and cooperation, crowds gathered in plazas, on space stations, even on remote colonies to witness her speech. Behind Elena, a large holo display looped the resonance patterns of the crystal, now renamed the Pulse Harmony Wave. As she spoke, her voice was calm, yet carried the weight of everything she and her friends had risked. In the months that followed, governments and research councils formed a new consortium, the Interstellar Council for Strength and Unity. Their first act was to retire the old by-God readings. In place of unit measures, they introduced the Unity Index, a scale that reflected empathy, courage and service, and the ability to uplift others. Soldiers used it to decide when to stand down. Diplomats measured hope before peace talks. Even athletes trained not just their muscles, but their spirits, knowing that a high unity index meant they could inspire others to overcome greater challenges. Dr. Soren Vale helped design the first unity reactor, a device that used safe, controlled resonance to heal injuries in field hospitals. It gently coaxed cells toward regeneration. Guided by the same resonance patterns Elena had recorded at the Canyon Shrine, patients recovered faster, and tensions eased in war-torn regions where the reactor's soothing hum replaced the crackle of weapons. Vale smiled as he watched people of different species sharing stories of recovery, tears of relief shining in their eyes. Malik traveled the galaxy with mobile labs, teaching students how to cultivate intention and empathy in a dusty frontier academy on Epsilon 4. He showed children how a simple act offering water to a stranger could raise their unity index. More than any physical feat, he watched as smiles spread across alien faces, no longer bound by fear or suspicion. This, he told them, is the hidden strength inside you all along. Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Myers published her findings in the Universal Journal of Harmony. Her paper, Beyond the Measure of Muscle, the Science of Will, became required reading for every academy and research center. She spoke at conferences, sharing simple exercises anyone could use to focus their intent, breathing with purpose, choosing kindness, holding to hope even in darkness. Her words echoed across lecture halls, sparking debates that united rather than divided. Artists captured the new spirit in murals and music. On the capital planet of Lyria Prime, a giant sculpture stood in the main square. Two hands, one human and one alien, joined atop a crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Around the base, etched words read, "Strength lies in choice." Musicians composed the pulse hymn, a gentle melody that rose and fell like the resonance wave. It became the song of festivals and remembrance ceremonies, a promise that even when tomorrow was uncertain, unity would light the path. Years later, Elena stood on a balcony overlooking the rebuilt arena where the first Biogod's test had taken place. The old machine was gone, replaced by a simple daze where people of all kinds shared stories of courage. She felt the warm wind on her face and remembered every step of her journey from the dark canyon to the bright stage. Around her, laughter and conversation wove together like threads of light. Elena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. In that moment, she understood fully the hidden variable had not only changed science, it had reshaped hearts. As the sun rose higher, its rays touched the crystal sculpture below, making it glow as if alive. A new era of understanding had begun, one where strength was measured not in force, but in the power of choice, kindness, and unity.